Do you love feeling sore after you work out? Many people don't. Now, some people do, but many people don't. So if you don't worry, you are not alone. But the next question is, do you even need to feel sore after your workouts in order to build your health with your workouts? This is exactly what Julie and I will be exploring on today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast. We're going to cue the intro song and then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, what's going on, exercisers? This is Charlie. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to ask you if you've ever thought to yourself, wow, the information on the Exercise is Health podcast is so great, but how do I go about implementing it? This is a question that we have been hearing time and again from so many of you. And because of that, we have created something that you are going to absolutely love. And that is the One Workout Away Challenge. See, you are just one workout away from feeling stronger, from functioning better, and from living healthier. And over the course of 28 days, Julie and I want to teach you how. To learn more about the next One Workout Away Challenge and get signed up, go to owa.matschaumburg.com. And without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. Now, so many of you exercisers have taken the time to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you haven't, why the heck not? We give you value every single week. Now, if you're not in our exercise group yet, if you're not wouldn't consider yourself an exerciser yet, if this is your first time hearing our podcast yet, then don't feel bad. But there are some of you who have listened to literally hundreds of our podcasts every single week. We give you value, and you haven't taken the time to give us 2 minutes to give us that 5-star rating and review. So if you haven't yet, please do that. We let you know every single week to do that. You know why? Because it helps this message reach more people. But some of you have. And for that, we want to say thank you. And we want to highlight a review right now that we recently received.
This review says, Charlie and Julie are fun, knowledgeable, motivating, and dedicated to creating healthy lifestyles for everyone. This podcast is an excellent source for individuals of all fitness levels. Thank you so much for that 5-star rating and review. We absolutely love hearing from you, as Charlie said. And your 2 minutes of time to give us a rating and review dramatically helps us spread our message and help us help you become healthy through using exercise.
So today we're talking about this idea of soreness, because honestly, soreness is something that is like so inbred and so ingrained within the fitness industry and within the workout culture, the gym culture, of like the expectation of you're going to feel sore after you work out, which is a huge problem because many people don't like feeling sore. Maybe you're one of them. So the question is, do you even need to feel sore after you work out in order to get health results from your workouts? Okay, we're not talking about like muscle building, bodybuilding, speed building, all that stuff results. Okay, muscle building, yes, from a health perspective, not necessarily from like a sports performance, physique competitor perspective. Okay. On this podcast, we talk about using exercise to build your health. So really the question is, do you need to feel sore after you work out in order to build your health? That's exactly what we're exploring today.
Charlie, I think there's kind of two schools of thoughts when it comes to creating validity in what you've done during your workout. There's one school of thought where it's like, well, I'm doing something, and doing something is all that person's trying to do. So whether it's really low key, not anything that someone might yield as like, oh, they're hardcore and working out, the doing something group. But then there's also a group of people that are like, well, if I'm gonna work out, I need to do it so that it's creating maximum change. And as you said, this idea of soreness is so ingrained in our, workout like culture that it's almost like, so if I'm doing enough to create change, then I have to become sore. So if you don't like that feeling of being sore, well, then it's really hard to like get on board with like doing enough to actually create change, because we're kind of taught creating change means creating soreness, and soreness is a sign of a good workout. And if you are listening to this and you like the feeling of soreness, well, congratulations, you're in the very small population of people that like feeling sore. But I bring this up because you might be listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, I've never even questioned if I should feel sore or if soreness is really a sign of a good workout or not, because we've always been told that it is. So I'm hoping we can also take a step back, especially if you have been an exerciser for a while, or maybe you're brand new to exercise. We're going to introduce this concept that makes exercise more sustainable, more potent to your health, meaning it's going to create bigger health changes for you. And this topic of soreness is really important in this conversation.
Yeah, Julia, that's a really big point that you brought up is these kind of two mindsets when it comes to soreness. Is the one, either you're like, okay, I'm about it, I'm accepting it, it's going to be something that's always there when I work out, and so I'm just going to have to deal with it and get through it, and I'm expecting it to be there. And the other group is like, yeah, no, we don't like soreness, so we're either not going to exercise at all, or we're going to do so very minimal but still tell ourselves a story of like, at least we're doing something, right? Like that's what we tend to find is people are either like about it or tolerant of it, or they are just so opposed to it that they're not going to do anything. But there's another option, as there usually is, okay? It's not like this yes or no. There's another option where you can actually exercise to the point where you can get legitimate health results, and you don't have to go to the point that you're actually sore. And guess what? Even the way I structured that sentence, it makes it sound like it's a volume thing. Like, oh, I just need to do less. But as with most things with exercise, it's not necessarily about what you're doing or even like how much of it you're doing, but it's largely dependent on how you're doing it in terms of whether or not you experience soreness, achiness, anything like that after you exercise. It's not about what you're doing. It's about how you're doing it. And that's really what we need to talk with you about today. You change how you're doing your exercise and add in some of the steps that we're going to give you today, and you can dramatically change the likelihood that you will experience any kind of negative repercussion from your workouts, including feeling sore after your workouts.
Absolutely, Charlie. I mean, think about all the workout apps, all the workout programs. They always give you different like different exercises. So like think about all the different millions of exercises that you might have, or very few exercises that you might have in your exercise library. Most of the time people are talking about different exercises. Oh, that one doesn't feel good, try this one. Oh, that one doesn't feel good, try this one. But what Charlie has really created and spearheaded is he created an entire class that is geared towards the how of exercise. And what we've realized when we step back was that, wow, teaching people how to exercise, not just giving people more and more exercises, really changes the game. So here's the thing. When we think about the people that are like, okay, I'm going to do something and I'm going to be very far away from doing anything enough that might create soreness, is that oftentimes those individuals aren't usually doing enough to create maximum or even close to maximum amount of health changes. Unless you literally were a couch potato and you started walking, well, then you're going to reach some kind of, increased health. But the thing is that we get increased health when our body continues to be challenged by our exercise. And so if all you went from is I'm on the couch to now I'm walking a mile a day, that's amazing. That was a challenge for your body. But then you get accustomed to walking a mile and you have to start increasing the challenge for you to keep getting the health benefits. The school of thought that thinks, okay, I'm going to work out and, so I know that I do a good workout. I'm going to make sure that I get sore the following day. Those people, the good thing is that they're usually doing enough to yield some of those challenging aspects of a workout enough to create soreness. But we actually want to find a medium of, we want to challenge ourselves when we're in the gym to create these health changes and to create this challenge that I'm talking about on our body, so that our body has to adapt and get better and get stronger and get all these cool metabolic and brain changes that that can happen when you're appropriately exercising. But we don't need to go to the point of the actual soreness part. Now, most of the time when I talk to people about soreness, they always think that it's a result of the amount that they're doing. Like, oh, I did 5 pounds, but now I did 10 pounds and that's why I'm sore. Or I did 20 reps and now I did 50 reps and that's why I'm sore. But what Charlie and I see in our practice, and many of our colleagues find, is that soreness is actually not a result of strictly volume. We almost always think that it's just from the volume, just the amount of reps, the amount of weight. But oftentimes it's a result of not really respecting your body's range of motion relative to the exercise that you're doing. And that is the biggest reason why most regular exercisers like you and I will get sore, is because we've violated our range of motion, not necessarily because we did too much weight or too many reps.
Yeah, this is a really interesting concept for a lot of people, and really kind of one that they haven't heard before, that why you're feeling sore after your workout is not necessarily because you did too many reps or because you did too much weight, but rather because you used too much motion. And why this can feel a little prickly sometimes is because we're told all the time that we need to use our full range of motion, that we need to go full range of motion, that motion is the thing that we think of when we think of exercise. We think of, well, get up and get moving. Like that's what we tell ourselves, right? Well, I need to get moving. And the emphasis then is put on motion. That's where the focus is. And so we think, okay, well, more motion must be better, when in fact, more motion may be the thing that's causing you to feel sore, that's causing you to feel achy, that's causing you to feel beat up. So how do we go about changing this? How do we go about not only changing our focus, but changing our understanding of what we need to be thinking about while we're exercising, what we need to be emphasizing while we're exercising if it's not range of motion? And not only that, how do we go about doing exercise within a way that respects our range of motion and that will thereby limit how much, the likelihood that we end up feeling achy, beat up, and sore after our workouts. And that's really what we're going to be exploring with this conversation is, okay, well, how do we go about changing our exercise? How do we go about doing our exercise differently? If it's not the what, it's the how, then how do we go about doing that?
Absolutely, Charlie. And I think you said something really great there, where we always feel like, and we're told, and I have to say, you and I don't disagree with this, but we have to say we have an adjustment to it, but is that we need to be exercising with our full range of motion, or with full range of motion. We need to add in the your. You need to exercise with your full range of motion, which is different than my full range of motion, which is different than Bob's full range of motion and Jill's full range of motion. Everyone's is different. Not necessarily just because we're a different human, but because each of us enter a workout in a different state than any other workout. And range of motion changes. Range of motion is kind of showing you where your body is ready to be challenged and where it's not. And so some days your body's going to enter a workout like ready to rock and roll. And some days your body's going to enter a workout not really ready to rock and roll. And so you might find that an exercise that you did Monday and the exercise you did the next Monday, you might have drastically different ranges of motion. But the important part is that you're respecting your range of motion for that day, for that workout.
That really is the key concept to this whole thing, is understanding what your range of motion is. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we got a two-step process for you to understand what your range of motion is and how to go about respecting it with every exercise you do to reduce the chance you end up feeling sore or achy or beat up from your workouts. Step number one is to check your exercise specific range of motion. Okay, well, what does this mean? It means when you're about to do an exercise, do that exercise without any weight, without any load, without any, bands or hanging on to anything extra, okay? Just do the motion that you're about to do for the exercise and see how your body moves without any extra, again, weight, load, resistance, anything like that. So for example, if you're going to do a shoulder press or an overhead press, well, it would start by kind of like reaching your arms up like you're overhead, like you're reaching up overhead, and just seeing how your body moves, seeing if there's any pinching, pain, discomfort, if there's any kind of tightness, and also just as important, seeing how much your body actually moves on the reaching up and then reaching down, okay? Understanding kind of where your range of motion is at that moment on that day, all right? And then, making sure that you're doing it just as you would while you're doing the exercise as far as the motion that you're using. This is a really important concept because now you have a framework for which to operate in while you're doing the exercise.
This point is really important no matter if you're new or returning to exercise. If you're new to exercise, it's great because it's almost like a little quick self-check-in before you do each exercise. All right, where does my body want to go? Where does it not want to go? This is also really important and maybe a little bit tough if you are familiar with exercise, because you might go to the gym and the 10 machines that you use, you have your preset spots where you go, and no matter how your body's feeling, you're like, well, the seat has to be at 3 and the armrest has to be at 5. That's my settings. Well, what we're saying is check your range of motion, do the exercise with no external influences, see how your body's feeling with it. If your body naturally stops one day before your quote unquote other day's range of motion, then respect that. And all we're saying is wherever your body allows you to move in a certain day, respect that motion for all the exercises and adjust your machine settings, adjust the distance that you move, adjust your starting position if you need to. So these are all going to be customized ranges each and every time you work out.
Now, the next step, once you have your range of motion identified, is to move slowly within that range of motion. All right. The two biggest things that end up leaving people sore are moving too far and moving too fast, using too much motion and using too much speed. Okay. Why do these go hand in hand? Because the faster you move, the more likely it is that you're going to move too far for what's appropriate for your body, for what your body can handle on that day. And this is in part because you're going to be focused on trying to move. You're going to be focused on trying to get more motion, which is going to set you up to be more likely to move too far. But then also, the faster you move, the more likely you are to be using momentum to carry you into more motion than you otherwise would be able to move or be able to attain. All right. And so this moving slowly piece, in order to make the motion that you just checked and that you just established is like, okay, here's my safe zone, here's where I should be doing the exercise. In order to make that whole thing worthwhile, you need to move slowly while you are going through that range of motion, while you are doing the exercise and doing it through what you establish as like, okay, here is your range of motion for today.
Absolutely, Charlie. The speed is a huge thing. And again, the speed just directly really relates to how well your body's going to be able to stay within the range of motion that you've established. Because we see people all the time flinging weights around, and some people, that's just how they normally exercise all the time. Actually, I think most people, that's how they exercise all the time. And that's because their goal is something external, whether it's getting reps done, whether it's getting a number in, or they feel like they have to go up in weight. But really, if you establish your range of motion and then move slowly within that range of motion so that you're never violating or going past your pre-established range of motion, then your body's going to give you so much more, because you're not going to be getting as much soreness or any soreness after your workouts. And you're going to be feeling like, okay, every workout I'm getting stronger and stronger, rather than that temporary setback of feeling sore.
You know, what's really cool, Julie, is when you establish like where your body is able to move on the day and then stay within that amount of motion, you can challenge yourself like a whole bunch within that range and get a whole bunch of benefits within that range, and then be able to recover quickly from your workouts because you're not feeling achy, you're not feeling beat up, you're not feeling sore. You can come back to your workouts again the next day. And so if the question is, well, okay, well, can I still get health benefits from my workouts even if I'm not working out to the point of soreness? Absolutely, because the health benefits that you get from exercise have nothing to do with soreness. All right, soreness is not the driver of the health benefits. Challenge to your body is the driver of the health benefits. And the cool thing is soreness is not a derivative of challenge. Soreness comes from too much motion, which often comes from too much speed. So you limit your motion, you limit your speed, you can limit your soreness, but you can still keep your challenge really, really high. Now, what's the problem if you decide, okay, well, you know what, that sounds good and all, but I don't really want to check my range of motion. I don't really want to, I want to move as fast as I want to move. Well, either A, you're going to keep feeling achy, beat up, and sore after your workouts, and eventually you get to the point where you're either too sore or too injured to exercise consistently or exercise at all. And that's the surest way to make sure that you don't get health benefits from exercise, is to not be able to exercise consistently or not be able to exercise whatsoever. The other big issue with it is you might just decide, okay, well, this is just feels like it's just far too complicated for me. So, you know what, I'm just not going to do anything then. I'm just going to, keep doing like my really, really super low intensity workouts where I know that I'm so far away from the, extreme of ending up sore that, I can still do something. And again, this kind of comes back to the idea of like, all right, something is better than nothing, but the thing that drives health changes, the thing that drives benefits from a health perspective is the challenge component. So you have to be able to challenge your body, challenge it consistently, but challenge it in a way that you can keep coming back to. And these are really two big steps to help you do that.
Now, Charlie, one of the biggest signs that your workouts are working for you is, I think, that feeling of strength and being able to do more things with confidence. Because again, why are we exercising here in the first place? Yeah, we can talk about changing our blood values and things at the doctors, but also there's a huge one that we can see without having to get any kind of medical intervention, which is I'm able to do more stuff and do it with confidence. And I actually had a really cool example of this with one of my clients just this past week. She's really active. She loves to do things like rollerblading and doing things outside on her bike. So she's just really active outside. And so she knows she has to be weightlifting and exercising to maintain that and keep her strength. And what she was finding was that the more and more that she did in the gym, the more and more that she felt like she couldn't do outside of the gym, which really shows that disconnect of like, hey, when I'm exercising to a point of this soreness that I'm saying is like, this is my tough workout, this is what's going to help me with my life, I actually can do less in my life. Like I'm feeling, my knees are feeling bothered with my rollerblading, or my hip is bothering me when I'm on my bike. And what we ended up doing was I taught her how to check her range of motion so that she can adjust the machines when she's doing her exercise, so that she can do the challenging workouts that should be benefiting her life. But now we're finding that she has more confidence and more stability, and her body is feeling so much better and stronger when she's doing her activities in life, that she's able to enjoy them more, she's able to do them more, and now she doesn't have to have, the day of soreness after her workouts for it to still be a great workout.
So the great thing about following these two steps is that when you implement them consistently. Not only will you find that your body gets less sore after your workout, but you find that you are able to consistently build your health and build your strength with every workout. You'll have that confidence of knowing that your body can be there in the way that you want it to be there. You can do the things that you want to do in life without fear of injuring yourself, without fear of like, oh my gosh, am I going to have the stamina to do this? Am I going to have the strength to do this? Because you have a way to exercise that you can keep coming back to, that builds your health, that builds your strength day after day, workout after workout, decade after decade. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is not exercising right now because they don't want to feel sore and achy after they work out, or who is so focused on making sure that they keep pushing through the soreness, keep pushing through the achiness after their workouts, that ultimately they're setting themselves to not be able to work out at all? Share this episode with them so they can understand that soreness is not a necessary component of building your health with exercise, and what to do with your workouts to help decrease the likelihood that you end up feeling achy, beat up, and sore from your workouts. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. So what did you think about that episode? Did you find the information useful? If you would like some more in-depth guidance on applying this kind of information to your own workouts, make sure to sign up for the upcoming One Workout Away Challenge. You can get registered by going to owa.matschaumburg.com schaumburg.com. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.